Hello everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Witch's Tea Party. And in this little video, and I do apologise that it's taken me so long to kind of get around to putting another video out for the Witch's Tea Party. Things have been slightly hectic with, well, just let's say it's been hectic. So this particular video we're going to be looking at, as a requested topic, astral projection, and we're going to be looking at astral temples as well. So the word itself, astral, comes from the Greek word which means star, so the Greek word being aster. So that kind of gives us an indication of what it is that we're dealing with. And astral projection basically is to learn to be free, I guess, from the bonds of time, and to project your own consciousness, or you fetch away from your resting body, your physical you, yourself, and explore the astral plane. Some people, you know, they will tell you that they've been able to astral project from childhood and into adulthood, whereas other people, it's a case of having to remember, and notice I'm saying sort of remember, how to astral project, because it does take time and practice and self-discipline to master astral travel, in the cases where obviously you're having to remember this particular skill. But I mean, we can assist that process through things like yoga, meditation, and in the creating of what we call astral temples, and all these things assist us in this sort of self-discipline aspect of astral projection. Now let's break this down into understandable format. There are different planes of existence, different levels of consciousness, and we have sort of physical, if we're working through these planes, you would have the physical plane, and then the etheric plane, the astral plane, the mental plane, and the spiritual plane, and they are all interconnected. So it's kind of like a lift, an elevator, up and down both ways, these sort of levels of consciousness, these planes. So if you think about something like the tree of life, I'm going to use that analogy because most people at some point, even if they don't sort of study Kabbalah or anything like that, will have seen a graphic somewhere along the line of the tree of life. And at this point I'm just going to pause, try and pop in a graphic to show you these sort of levels, and then I'll be straight back. Okay, if I don't get this, just as a side note, if I don't get the graphic in, if I can't manage to get it in, it'll be at the end of the video with some like added little notes. Okay, so we're back in a minute. Okay, so hopefully that graphic's in and we can sort of progress. So an astral temple. An astral temple is from, I guess, Hermetic origins really, and it's creating a permanent ritual space upon the astral that kind of provides us with a gateway to other realms. And as a suggested sort of starting point of building one of these astral temples for yourself, you need to be in a relaxed state first and foremost, and obviously somewhere that you're not going to be disturbed. So you know, light some incense if you want to, that, you know, something like a stick or a candle that doesn't need your constant attention. You know, loose incense is great, but you are required to keep adding it to the block as needed, whereas sort of sticks and cones, well, that they will burn on their own. So get yourself in a relaxed state. You might want to just sit and kind of, you know, do some breathing exercises first or whatever, have your incense lit. If you work with circles, then cast a circle so that you can work within that circle. Cleansings, any sort of added protection measures that you would usually use, say let's say if you're doing a meditation or something. And the idea is, I mean, these are just sort of some suggestions of creating this sort of astral temple for yourself. So remember, it's down to personal preference on the details, I guess, really. So visualise a place for yourself among the stars. So you sort of got yourself into this transic state, this meditative state, and you visualise ascending to a place among the stars, and from this place you're then going to see a path that takes you from the point that you're at to this temple that you have created in your mind's eye. And then follow that pathway, see the pathway leading into the temple, the inner temple, and then take some time to sort of look around, see the room itself, see the walls, see the flooring, take notice of any wall hangings or tapestries that are on these walls. They could be depicting things like the elementals, the elements, the seasonal markers, things like that, and take note of the ceiling for any sort of astrological or zodiacal symbols that are on the ceiling, and then see an altar in this hall, in this room, and all the tools that, if you work with tools are akin that would be on this altar space, and the candles that are there. Then take the time to light the candles that are on the altar space, and at this point you are then able to do whatever workings it may be that you've come to this astral temple, this permanent place to do. So it could be a meditation, it could be to commune with deity, it could be to perform a working, it could be to, on the astral, to gain divinatory or oracle sort of knowledge for yourself. Once you've completed whatever it happens to be that you are doing, the reason for you going to this astral temple, and you could just have gone to this astral temple just to centre. It could be as simple as that. So once you've done whatever you're doing, then you would extinguish the candles that are on this altar that you've created. Be aware again of the room and the sort of decor that's around as you're leaving, and see the pathway that you were originally walking along on your entry, see it as you're leaving, that takes you to this pathway amongst the stars again, and at which point you are then sort of re-entering self. And once you're back into self, very similarly in the sense that I was talking about in one of the other videos with the taproot meditation and the breathing exercise and things, don't give yourself a shock to the system. You need to take your time to just breathe, become self-aware, become aware of the environment around you, and then open your eyes so that you're not having this shock of being sort of back to self. Afterwards you may want to ground, so eat something, drink something, maybe utilise something like the taproot meditation at the end. And if you don't know what the taproot meditation is, look for the grounding and shielding video, because I'm sure it's in that, it should be. Some sort of cautionary advice, you don't have to take it, but it's here anyway. It may not be helpful if you're sort of inebriated in any way. So if you've had a few quaffs, you know, been out with some friends or whatever, and you had a couple of the old bevies or whatever, or if you had a really long day, hard day at work, a lot of stress and strains, if you're overtired, or if you're feeling unwell, these are probably not the best times to attempt to create or go to your astral temple. And it's usually recommended not to take anything from the astral unless you are given express permission, because we can meet with entities on the astral, so unless you're given permission to take something, don't. And also not to eat something, not to consume something upon the astral. And these are suggestions, because I never tell anybody, not, you know, kind of don't do this. That's not within, you know, it's entirely your journey, your responsibility for yourself. So there we go, with that said. So that's sort of the astral temple covered. And the reason that I've covered it first is because all of these things, i.e. like, you know, the yoga or the meditation and this creating astral temple, assist us with the self-discipline that's necessary to be able to astrally project. So I guess the first thing to know about astral projection is that you have an ethereal thread, and this between you and this ethereal thread that connects the soul to the body, it's inseparable. And this thread is even mentioned in Ecclesiastes in the Bible as a silver thread. When you are attempting to perform astral projection, it is best not to be disturbed in any way. So make sure that the kids or the pets aren't going to disturb you. Make sure that the phone's not going to be ringing, because you don't want to be shot back. And it's important not to be shot back, so make sure that you will not be disturbed in any way. Some people would suggest that it would be a good idea to have, I guess, an astral buddy who could make sure that things like the phone isn't going to ring or nobody's going to knock at the door and all of that kind of jazz. Now, with astral projection, although we're not actually in deep sleep, we are in what some would say would be non-REM sleep, and that's the first 5 to 10 minutes as you close your eyes. It's that state. And in that first 5 to 10 first sort of minutes of closing your eyes, you are very easily disturbed. So hence this is why we don't want things like phones and things going. We're in a relaxed, meditative, transic state, level of, you know, these levels of consciousness again, and we're not actually asleep. And it's worthwhile kind of noting that your consciousness shifts regularly to varying levels of alertness constantly throughout your day, and even sort of sleep states are shifting constantly between non-REM and REM sleep. So it does take time to practice the self-discipline necessary in order to astrally project. Times suggested for astral projection are sort of before you go to bed, and dawn just as you're waking, but I guess, as with many sort of things, you know, see what works for you. It's also suggested that there are 3 exit points from your physical ethereal body, and I'm going to go into these bodies, so don't worry about too much about that just yet. The 3 chakra points being the solar plexus, the heart and the crown are these 3 exit points suggested for astral projection. So I'm going to pause, and again I'm going to try and get a graphic in, so bear with me. Okay, so I'm back. Hopefully that went well. So when you... I hope that that kind of makes sense as well. But basically, when you're starting this process of astral projection, you are seeing your soul lifting from your physical self. So at first, it may be that you can only just sort of manage fingers. Yeah, if you're sort of seeing your soul lifting from your physical self, you might only be able to astrally, at soul level, be able to wiggle your fingers or maybe wiggle your toes. But as you gain more practice, you'll be able to lift your whole self. And bearing in mind where these 3 exits are, being solar plexus, heart and crown. Now, when you've got to a stage that you can take your whole soul body from your physical self, try projecting to the next room to where you actually were. And once you're visiting that room and you're in that room, take notice of objects that are in the room and the fine details. The details that you wouldn't necessarily be looking at in wakened conscious state. Make it, you know, a short trip back to self. And once you're sort of back in physical you and fully conscious again, make a note of any differences between waking self and what you saw while you were astrally projecting. And as you're going along, you can go, you know, the next time you could go a bit further maybe, and keep repeating this process, increasing, I guess, the distance, or even if it's not distance, the amount of time or the amount of detail that you are looking at, because astral travel can take us anywhere, absolutely anywhere. But it's important to remember not to overdo this at first when you're first starting out, because if we're expending too much soul energy, it can feel as though it's very difficult to slip back into physical self, into, you know, your body. It can feel difficult to slip back. So do short journeys initially. And when we're sort of doing this projection, we can create rituals, we can visit with those who've passed on, we can acquire knowledge, new skills. and commune with sort of ethereal planetary hierarchy beings while we're astrally projecting. But bearing in mind what I said when it comes to sort of taking things without asking or consuming things, and it's always kind of a good thing to, I guess, keep your manners about you. Just because we're on another sort of plane doesn't mean that we don't communicate in the same way that we would as self on the mundane plane. So when we're journeying, the reason for exiting the crown would be that it allows us in waking consciousness to remember the experiences that we had while we were astrally projecting. Another point to note, and I guess this is sort of, most people can relate to this, in that if you find yourself kind of nodding and drifting, you know, kind of half asleep type thing, or if you've been dreaming and all of a sudden you've had a body jump or a jolt, this is more than likely due to your emotional, mental body. So remember this graphic that I hope I put it in when I meant to, if not, refer to the end of the video. This emotional, mental body is trying to leave the physical ethereal body too soon before it's sort of relaxed down enough, and that's what creates this jump type thing, or this sort of startle whoop type thing. And it's essentially, you know, that we're snapping back into physical self. So it's worth taking the time to make sure that you are completely relaxed before you try astral projecting. Now, astral projection is you know, it's kind of one of those terms that I suppose some people watching this are going to be sitting thinking, well, yeah, actually, I've been doing that, I just didn't know what the name for it was. And that can very well be the case, because astral projection, shamanic journeying, shape-shifting, they're all very similar things. Dream travelling, things like that, they are all very similar things. And again, we're sort of crossing back over to, you know, astral temples and things. So you may find watching this that you have experienced astral projection already, and if so, then I hope that this has helped in some way for you to identify what it is that you've been naturally doing or you've been doing for a while. And if not, then I hope the information that I've included assists. But yeah, take your time, relax, don't try and force this, you know, there's no deadline to being able to do this. Not every practitioner does do this either. You know, it's very much down to personal preference. And I guess the most important thing would be to build on your own self-discipline, because it does take self-discipline to be able to achieve these different, because within astral projection there are different levels of ability, and I suppose you can't sort of could say all the way through to enlightenment. So take your time and don't force it. Now, I know that I hope this video has helped the person who requested the video. I also know that Witches of the Moon, because I noticed yesterday, they've been running this week videos by the host and sub-host on astral projection. So maybe have a look at those. And also, I'm sure that there is a video on the Witch's Lair that went up today, I think. Maybe yesterday, I'm not sure, but I saw it today anyway. On one of the Shout Out Saturdays, somebody was talking about a link for astral projection, and I think it was lucid dreaming actually. So their video on the Shout It Saturdays, one of those videos has a link to another channel that gives more information on the topic. So I hope that that's given sort of a rounded idea, information to astral travel, astral projection, astral temples, and I hope you've enjoyed it. So I'm going to say for now, much love, many blessings, and I will see you again very, very soon. Bye for now.